One of the things I'd like to talk about is the way in which we ask questions during a teaching time. Here's what I'm seeing. I am seeing a tendency amongst the pastors to ask a question in such a way that they know, that the congregation knows they really don't want them to answer it. So there's something about the way in which they're asking it. Either they're asking it too fast, or they're just simply asking the question and then moving on. They're not actually saying to you as a parishioner, would you think about this question? So the guys are actually, the pastors are asking their questions, but the congregation knows they don't want a response. I think what's happening is the folks listening, learning with us, are not actually thinking about the answer because of the way you ask the question. So one of the things we've been trying to do over this past year, for instance, is to say to guys, and look, when you ask them a question, ask it sincerely, demanding them to think it through. Now, you might not be comfortable yourself, like if you were in my shoes, you may not be comfortable actually asking the question and waiting for a real answer. We do this in church a lot. I'll ask questions, and I actually want them to answer back. And I think in congregations up to 500 or 600, you can do that. I think you can see enough people that you can actually ask the question and get a response. Some folks aren't comfortable doing that, and I don't think that really matters whether you actually answer it out loud or not. But I think the important thing is, if I ask a question, I ask it sincerely enough and slow enough. In other words, I don't ask the question and move on. I actually ask the question and give you a moment to think about the answer. That way, I think I'm engaging you more into that teaching time. So if you're listening at all and you actually hear the question, you'll think about the answer possibly if you're an engaged listener. The research I'm reading about is telling us that this particular generation of listeners, they really want to be active. So like, with your gadgets and phones and all that, people really want to interact with what's going on. They want to experience it. They want to be involved. Well, one way to do that is to ask a question in such a way that I'm asking you to answer it. I want you to answer it. And again, you may be in a scenario or a situation or a venue where you're not actually waiting for a verbal response. Maybe the congregants aren't used to that. But you are saying to them, would you think about this with me? We need to answer this question in order to get to the truth and the theology that's being conveyed. So my suggestions have been to some of the pastors, listen, make sure you ask questions in such a way that you're encouraging a response, either verbal or nonverbal. Either they actually verbalize it, or at least they think through the answer. And I think that's a way to get them more involved. And I think it actually is an act of worship. You're actually helping them think through what is their response to the revelation of God.